Donald Trump decides to literally bomb a town in Nigeria that has nothing to do with his proclamation of his illegal war. Let's get into it. All right, put it up. Here we go. I want you to look at the bloodshed that can come from such carnage. War is about two things: killing people and blowing things up. We call it war. Here's a statement from residents of that community.
Residents near a village targeted by U.S. airstrikes in northwestern Nigeria on Thursday night recounted the moment their village shook. They did not learn what had hit their quiet village until later, when news broke that what they had witnessed was a U.S. attack on an alleged Islamic State camp. We saw when something passed above like lightning, and we thought it was at the back of our village. We saw it, and then it dropped and burst into flames. So we started calling people from Kajiji to ask them what happened. They told us it happened between Jabo and Kagara towns. U.S. President Donald Trump announced late Thursday that he had authorized a strike against an ISIS camp in northwest Nigeria. President said Jabo had never seen any attack by armed groups.
The first casualty of war is truth. That is the first casualty of war. Trump is doing everything he can do to escalate actual conflict, to deflect from his failed policies, both personal and presidential. So he gives you targets, hopes that you take the bait. On the other side of these targets are actual human beings, souls inside of human bodies. He proclaims lies in order to sell you a fairy tale. That's truly a nightmare. You know it. Even if there's someone watching this who voted for Trump and you were down with MAGA, I didn't hear you say bomb Nigeria. I never heard you say we must go to war with Nigeria. I did not hear you talk about colonization of other sovereign nations. I heard you talk about domestic control, local small government, staying out of the affairs of other countries. I heard you say that, but I did not hear you say this. Put up that picture again. It's a cowardly act and an illegal act. When President Trump launched a series of airstrikes in Nigeria, he described it as an attack against ISIS terrorist scum in northwest Nigeria who have been targeting and viciously killing primarily innocent Christians, end quote. He concluded, quote, "May God bless our military and Merry Christmas to all, including the dead terrorists, of which there will be many more if their slaughter of Christians continues." He made the announcement on Christmas Day. To anybody who celebrates the holiday, which by the way is a compound word that means holy day, for anyone who believes in the separation of church and state, for anyone who is an Orthodox Christian, this is a rare opportunity. If you happen to be an atheist, but you care about human beings, which makes you good in my camp all day, this is a rare opportunity. We are all in agreement. We're all in alignment. Innocent people shouldn't die. I would have believed in a cold day in hell before I thought Tucker Carlson would be a moral voice at a conservative rally. But it happened. That's how extreme this party has become. That the guy who used to define the extreme, used to define the polarity of extremism, is now the voice of reason inside of that same party. There's more. Put it up. So let's get into it. All right. The locals in the town that was hit during the strike say terrorism was never a problem for them. On Friday, CNN published a report based on interviews with multiple residents of Jabo, which was hit by a U.S. missile during Thursday's attack, which landed just feet away from the town's only hospital. The rural town of Jabo is part of Sokoto state in northwestern Nigeria, which the Trump administration and the Nigerian government said was hit during the strike. Both sides have said militants were killed during the attack, but have not specified their identities or the number of casualties. Kabir Aduma, a security analyst from Beacon Security and Intelligence in Abuja, told Al Jazeera that the likely targets are members of Lukura, a recently formed offshoot of ISIS, according to the analysis. But the Trump administration, their explanation is that their home is at the center, of a quote, Christian genocide. Yes, Christian genocide left many residents confused, as CNN reported, while parts of the community face challenges with banditry, kidnappings, and attacks by armed groups, including the alleged terrorist organization, which Nigeria classifies as a terrorist organization due to suspected affiliation with Islamic State villagers. Says Jabo is not known for terrorist activity and that local Christians coexist peacefully in the Muslim majority. Let's go back a little bit. Let's go back. I had the privilege of being invited to lecture in Egypt a couple of years ago. That's Africa. And what you will notice as you travel throughout the region is that the Christians and the Muslims live in peace. They're right there. You know them by their attire, sometimes by their greeting. But there is no conflict. There is no clicking against the other. There is absolutely no territorial dispute in these nations when they coexist in a peaceful manner because of the civilization that they have decided to have. Understand what the Trump administration has done. The Nigerian government literally fights that actual terrorist group that they have classified under their authority as a nation, as a terrorist organization. You have Trump, who has now decided to go against the government, who is against the terrorist organization, by unilaterally bombing that nation and defying the rules of sovereign government. There's more. Put it up. Bashar Isa Jabo, a lawmaker who represents the town and surrounding areas in Nigeria's parliament, described the village to CNN as a peaceful community that has, quote, no known history of ISIS, Lakurawa, or any other terrorist groups operating in the area, end quote. While the town is predominantly Muslim, resident Kagara told reporters. We see Christians as our brother. We don't have religious conflicts. So we weren't expecting this. End quote. Nigeria, which is Africa's most populous nation, with more than 237 million people, has a long history of violence between Christians and Muslims, with each making up about half of the population, 237 million. So it takes a lot of self-determination to live in peace, which these regions have done. And they have done so successfully for many years. Trump comes in, creates an artificial conflict, drops a real bomb, tries to sell it to America. Very similar approach to almost every war we've had with other nations. There's more. Put them up. Go ahead and put up the good senator here. But Nigerian officials have disputed claims by Republican leaders, including U.S. Senator Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz out of Texas. Now, Ted Cruz, who claimed that the government is, quote, ignoring and even facilitating the mass murder of Christians. I want you to understand who's saying this. Is it rank and file members of the U.S. military? Do you have your lifers in the intelligence agencies proclaiming this? Has any other administration brought this to the forefront in this manner? Hell no. You have politicians saying this, politicians who are simply selling you a bill of goods and their lies. There's more. Okay. The senator recently claimed, without citing any source whatsoever, for the figures that since 2009, over 50,000 Christians in Nigeria have been massacred, and over 18,000 churches and 2,000 Christian schools have been destroyed by the Islamic group Boko Haram. Cruz is correct in this, that many Christians have been killed by Boko Haram, but according to the reports by the US-based Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project and the Council on Foreign Relations, the majority of the approximately 53,000 civilians killed by the group since 2009 have actually been Muslim. They've been Muslim. He got his numbers right, but he got the target wrong. They have been of the Islamic faith. There's more. Put them up. Moreover, the areas where Boko Haram is most active are in northeastern areas of Nigeria. The administration knows this. Far away from where Trump decided to conduct this attack. Attacks on Christians cited in October by Cruz, meanwhile, have been in Nigeria's Middle Belt region, which is separate from the violence in the north. The Nigerian government has pushed back on what they have called an oversimplified narrative coming out of the White House and from figures in the U.S. media like HBO host Bill Maher, who has echoed Cruz's overall claims of Christian genocide. Bill lost his way a long time ago. Let's put him up. Quote, portraying Nigeria's security challenges as a targeted campaign against a single religious group is a gross misrepresentation of reality, said Nigerian Information Minister Muhammad Idris Malagi. Quote, while Nigeria, like many countries, has faced security challenges, including acts of terrorism perpetrated by criminals. Couching the situation as a deliberate systemic attack on Christians is inaccurate and harmful, and literally the administration and the cronies are proclaiming that the government is, in fact, facilitating the attacks. One other point that's not mentioned in some of the articles is that a large percentage of Christians actually work for the government. Yeah. This is sad beyond belief. Trump is out of control only because the people around him allow it. He's a weak and unsteady man. He's paranoid, constant. And the fact that he's trying to get you to forget the reality of his failures shows you how much power you have. Because he knows that if you figure out that he has never been the man he's proclaimed to be, that every sand, every piece of sand in his artificial castle falls. All right. Just the thoughts here.
Yeah, Dr. Richey, so much to unpack here. I mean, you laid a tremendous foundation. I'm taking notes about some certain points I want to make. The first point, to your point about Nigeria being a sovereign nation. That's first and foremost.
First, yep.
And I want Americans to imagine if Nigeria just upped and said, you know what, the United States of America is anti-Muslim. We just gonna start bombing places. How we would feel as Americans being a sovereign nation. But most likely Nigeria would never do that because they know they're outgunned for sure, outbombed for sure, because we have more in our arsenal than the next 10 militaries combined in the entire world. But that's number one, it's a sovereign nation. Number two, the village is not known for any type of terrorism. I mean, Doc, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. People in this country who have a moral compass of any type, as you laid out, you ain't got to be a Christian to have one, should be absolutely outraged. They want to talk about Christian genocide, but I didn't hear these same people talking about that when Christians were being maimed and killed in Israel. Hello, somebody. I didn't hear them talking this kind of talk about the genocide that was happening in the Gaza. Because if you're anti-genocide, let's just be anti-genocide all the way around. Then President Trump ran as a faux populist. One of the things he said that he was going to do is stop wars. He rightly criticized President Biden over war making, but yet he is not only not doing anything about it, he's putting gasoline on all the fires. So just think about that. I'm really outraged. And then we got a tax on Christians here was another thought that came to mind when they were talking about they're gonna sit up there and protect Christians. What about the Christians in this country that don't have health care? What about the Christians in this country who can't afford their rent or their mortgage? What about the Christians in this country who can't afford childcare? And I'm being very sarcastic, Doc, when I say Christians, because this is a matter of humanity. But while they're spending our tax dollars and making, just stirring up more enemies for the United States of America, you're not even showing the requisite charity at home in the United States of America. Doc, this is an outrage. Let me tell you something. The scramble for the continent of Africa has been ongoing by European or imperialized colonistic type nations since the beginning. And so I am not surprised that in 2025 that this kind of behavior is continuing. And my last point on all the magnificent points you made, because I could keep going on this, is that I do believe that this is a foil for the president's failures. The American people should be disappointed for many reasons. One, an attack on a sovereign nation. Two, this president lied during his campaigning. And three, they wasted our tax dollars going after innocent people in other countries where that money could be spent domestically. And the fourth point, Doc, where in the hell is the United States Congress? And why have they abdicated their responsibility to be a check and a balance on the executive branch of government? And let me make a fifth point. Bill Maher, yes, lost his way a long time ago. And let me tell you something, even if that kind of activity was going on in that village, even if it was, but we know that it's not, but even if it was, we go back to point number one. Nigeria is a sovereign nation, and let that nation take care of that. Unless they called us up and said 911 America, and we say, what's your emergency? and they say they need some help from us, then we should not be in their affairs in this way. Doc, this is unfathomable.
Yeah, and to echo your point about how everybody, Christian and non-Christian, should be outraged by this. The man decided to do it on Christmas Day. Please understand, one, this was about resources in the Nigerian region. Two, he does it on a day that he doesn't respect. It's just a branding day for him. It's another opportunity to brand. So he does it on Christmas Day. If you happen to be a Christian, Orthodox or non-Orthodox, I recall when they came to arrest Yeshua, to lock him up. One of the disciples took a sword and cut off the officer's ear to protect Yeshua. Yeshua says, no, this is not our way. Heals the man's ear. This is in the scripture. And he becomes the passive radical, leading by example, non-conflict, non-combative transformation. He had folks that were armed with him, and he told them to put down their swords. That is the same Christ that the folk who championed this mess claim to follow. All right.